Hello, welcome to my channel. Welcome to this video. This I think is episode 8 of the Lessons I Must Learn series. Every time I start shooting, I forget to check what episode this is. But for today, we are talking about people pleasing. A friend of mine asked me to, do this a while back, but I don't know. It's just taken me time to I just needed time, honestly. And yeah, so finally here it is. I'll define it based on, of course, research, and maybe share instances of how people pleasing can look like or manifest, and then maybe some like the reasons why people do the people pleasing. I don't think I'll be in a position to share like solutions per se, but this should spark a thought in your mind on maybe some things you need to be like, okay, advocate for yourself, and just be like, okay, in this situation I have to say no, and it's okay no matter what, and just things along those lines. So we'll start with the definition. For me, actually, there's this definition that literally was saying that people pleasing is an act of self-sacrifice. Like me, I don't know if there's that definition, I think, just gives the right intensity of what people pleasing could look like. Literally, self-sacrifice for the sake of others, either to make them happy. So you want to make others happy to avoid conflict, to avoid negative feelings surrounding, let's say, you saying no in a situation. Maybe you're asked to do something, then you say no, and then maybe someone's reaction to that is, oh, they're suddenly disappointed in you, but you don't want them to be disappointed in you or to have to deal with that feeling, or to maybe be in a situation where you're conflicting. You just decide, okay, you'll betray yourself and go against what you believe in or what you would have wanted. So you're doing all these things to avoid the conflict, to avoid these negative feelings, and in the end you never express what your true feelings about something are. In some situations, you might even change your behavior so that you fit in certain groups, so that you're not like the odd one out. And I think these people experience it in so many different situations, even like, let's say in high school and you want to be a part of a clique, but maybe these people are mean to others and all that, so you'll also in turn be mean to other people. Change your behavior from being kind to mean, so that you fit in this group. So yeah, that's how people pleasing can look like. Another situation is, so now I'm at the point of how it looks like, how it can manifest. And some of them I was like just at me, like, just write my name under this point, because I definitely see myself in this. So it could be withholding your opinion or failing to just share it whenever you're having a conversation with people, because you're afraid of how you'll be perceived. And you can see, like, with people pleasing at this point, it has given such a high value to social interactions with people. So you want to fit in, you want to look like this, have this perception, or people have this perception of you, and you do not want to affect that, so you'll just go with the flow. So imagine people are having a conversation about something, and whether it's okay to have your own opinion that's different, but for you in that situation, you're like, it feels like it's not okay for me to maybe think contrary to what especially a majority are thinking. So if someone is, let's say, asking a question and they're in a friend group, just be supporting other people's point, yet you'd have a different opinion of it. So that's an example of how people pleasing could manifest. Another situation is apologizing even when things were not your fault. And I remember, for me, a situation is, like, I can give a good example of at work. So something, let's say you're supposed to have an event happen today, and then you have to reschedule it for, let's say, maybe to next week or something in that line. And I remember, like, in that moment, so yeah, this is now real life experience. I really wanted to be very apologetic about it, yet the rescheduling was not any of my fault, but I just wanted to be like, oh, we're really sorry, I'm really sorry, like, stuff like that. Yet I could just have said, we are pushing it to next week because maybe this venue is not available, or you don't even have to explain things. You can just say, hi, this is further to whatever was previously, communicated. This will be happening next week instead, stuff like that. And I just felt like, wow, like, why did I feel like I needed to own it and just be like, I don't know, like, rescue this situation? So that was an example. Okay, might not be like maybe the strongest example, I don't know. But yeah, it can manifest in, the need to apologize even when something is not your fault. So yeah, I think that's something to think about. This time I wanted to share more on the urge to over apologize every single time. Just like, how many times do you actually say sorry? Like, just say sorry even if you don't mean it really, because why? So yeah, that's one example of how people pleasing manifests. Another one is downplaying your strengths to make other people maybe feel comfortable. And this I could give like an academic example, maybe in a class setting. And I think I have done this, I know I have done this a couple of times. So you're anyway, like this thing. Okay, I'll just give a couple of examples. So you guys had been assigned to read some coursework, yeah? You read it, you've come to class prepared, the lecturer is asking questions, you know the answer, but because no one else is participating or no one else seems to have read, you won't participate because you just do not want to look like that person, because now people also make it look like, you're such a whatever, or like, oh my god, like, stop trying too hard. That's the kind of vibe that people give you, and yet you just did something that is expected of any good student. So that situation, of course, the lecturer is asking these questions, the answer, like the person even next to you can hear you like saying the answer just under your breath. You're whispering like, can someone just say this? And it ends up being the right answer, but you could not raise your hand to say because, or you want to be that person who has perhaps gone against everyone and decided to read or whatever. So that is one example. What was making me giggle earlier, like just the minutes before, is also this situation of you're preparing for an exam, then those people who are like they've not read because it would seem so awkward or so weird, like it's so uncool that you read for exam. And then maybe, yeah, you end up passing, but because of that moment and you being around this group of people where everyone is proud of perhaps not having prepared or whatever, you would never admit that you're actually ready and you prepared for this exam. So that's an example of, sometimes how you downplay your strengths. It could even be extreme to the point of you could even end up leaving a question blank because you're not trying to get 100%. You want to at least miss a couple of questions so that it also looks like, you're perhaps at the same point with people, or, you answer some things wrong intentionally. So those are like some of the things it could manifest as, especially, that is perhaps a very, I guess, shallow or like a smaller margin, but can you imagine how big that would develop into even at the workplace? You would never own, those things you've done for your company. Like, you would be willing to always credit it as a group effort and you slaved alone, but there you just admit that you don't want to ruin this social whatever that has been created, the social environment. So those are examples of how it can appear. I don't know if after I have mentioned these things you have started to maybe create a picture. For me, maybe it could look like, because I do not like hiking at all. But yeah, I'll just be like, everyone is like, oh, let's go, and I just for sure do not want to go. But I'll just be like, yeah, it sounds like fun. And then you go, and then you're just hating every single thing. But it's like, oh, at least I did this and that. And I know, granted, there are situations where it's possible to do things even if you're not necessarily comfortable with, but like, are you always the one doing those things? If it's a friend group, like, and you like doing this and you guys are often meeting, is it every time you're doing something you don't enjoy, and others would never do the same for you? Like, so those are those things. Yeah, like the instances, like, it can be fine because you value, you love your friend. Sometimes it can be okay to just be in that moment of discomfort, or just do things that are out of your comfort zone. But then every single time, I don't think that's right. So the next bit is pretty much on, so why do people please? The need and desire for acceptance in the communities that they find themselves in your social circles. You really value that social acceptance, and I think at some point, like this, your social networks or the people around you could even be considered currency. So I guess with time, it's just been a higher regard and esteem given to such things. So you'd find that you're like, this doesn't seem like such a big deal if it means that at least I still get to fit in and be relevant in this circle. So that could be a reason why you end up people pleasing so much. Another situation, or rather another reason, is you're highly empathetic. Like, can you imagine? Yeah, like I just, I was just imagining, like, for people who are very empathetic, how difficult it must be to not people please, because I think every time you're just always considering other people's feeling, and it's so easy to always give other people's feelings a priority over yours. So it's like, all right, I won't do this and that because this person will feel this way, and like, you're imagining, if they feel a certain way, it will still also affect you. Like, you'll feel so terrible, and maybe you've had this situation where someone reacted in a very strongly negative way, and you're just like, you never want that to happen again, or to be in a situation where you have to deal with that or be around it. So you're like, what, for the sake of calmness, peace, whatever it is for you, you just decide to always forgo perhaps certain things, or the need to want to always put their needs first before yours. So that can be also what can I say, like one of the reasons why someone may find themselves really people pleasing a lot. And then also the people who are insecure attachers, and that could really be one of the reasons why you end up people pleasing, because you feel as if if someone perhaps is slighted by what you've done, or just disappointed, even if it's a bit, to you, you already feel like this person hates you, like you cannot deal with that. And if you're very anxious as well, it feels like the easier decision is to just make sure everyone is happy, and then you feel like, okay, that alone would maybe even make you happy in the long run. So that could be another reason you might find that you are people pleasing. And then something else could also be how you've been what is it called, what is this term, socialized, by your environment, by norms, cultural standards, whatever. And you find that in some communities, women tend to people please more, because you've always been raised to be this natural, like women are naturalized, you're supposed to always be looking after other people's feelings and So it becomes very easy for so it becomes very easy for someone who's been raised in that type of situation or environment or socialized in that way to easily be a people pleaser, because that's been literally wired in you since you were young. Like, you cannot fathom anything different. Like, you cannot imagine that it's okay to not always want to put others' needs before yours. So yeah, that could be a reason why someone ends up people pleasing, because literally they've been socialized to be this person who is always looking after other people's needs. And yeah, so I hope this has given you a picture of what people pleasing is, how it manifests, and some of the reasons why we might find ourselves like being people pleasers. And I know like there's so much we could explore, and its relation to even other things, like I was mentioning being an empath and all these things. And then does that mean like now you never care about people? Like, does that mean you become a selfish person? All these things. But for me, I guess my takeaway is that whole bit of self-sacrifice, like that like you should never put yourself in a situation where every time you're betraying yourself because you do not want to deal with conflict, you do not want to deal with like negative feelings, you do not want to find yourself no longer fitting in a certain social circle. So yeah, that's the end of this video. I hope you've learned a thing or two, and I hope after listening you're going to perhaps do your own review and some of the things and situations you found yourself in, and maybe check yourself, call yourself out on some of the things. I definitely some of the things that could help, for sure, number one, therapy. I'm sure a professional could help you understand how to navigate it. And I even think things like you having certain boundaries with yourself could help a big deal. And depending on what kind of situations you're finding yourself where you're unable to maybe say no because of this and that, so that could also be something that helps. Radical, proactive, I guess, self-care, and just really going in and learning your self-worth, being self-aware. These are things like, it's active work, I believe, that someone needs to do. And because even the first point is becoming self-aware and realizing this is what you're doing. And then because you realize this is what you're doing and you really want to show yourself love, and by showing yourself love is validating how you feel, validating your choices, being confident in your opinion, so that eventually grows and it becomes something that is easier, and like you can even navigate life without feeling terrible when you say no, without feeling uneasy when you have to give a contrary opinion, without feeling like you need to always say sorry because of nothing that you did, or it will perhaps make someone feel better, or it will make this situation over. Maybe it's in a group setting and no one is taking blame, but then you're like, okay, to just make come to an end, I'll just take responsibility and say, hey, so it unfortunately cut, but I was just finishing up by saying that the situations where someone might find themselves in a group setting and something, let's say, bad happened, but no one is admitting, or rather the culprit is not admitting to it, but then because you don't want it to take any longer, or it's just becoming very uncomfortable, you'll own up to something you didn't do, so that we move on and all those things. So yeah, it could look like so many things, but I can't exhaust all of them, so this video is ending here for real now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a thing or two. I'm excited to film more lessons I must learn episodes, so be on the lookout for that. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please do like the video, leave a comment on your thoughts on something I have mentioned, and yeah, share this video with someone as well. See you on the next one. Bye bye.